Hello, YouTube, and welcome back to Brewing with Magic. Well, we've got some more spoilers for you today, and the second half is going to be the college that we're actually focusing on today, which is Silverquill, but we are going to first go over some other cards, and then we'll get into that. So before we do, hello, Will, how are you today?
Hey everybody, doing great.
Is there anything special that you would like to tell the people watching?
I really just want to keep promoting that we're trying to get to that 100 mark. We're really close. And if once we get there, a lucky subscriber is going to get 3,400 gems. And we just can't wait to give that out. So hopefully you're able to subscribe and we'll get you going.
Yeah, I almost feel like, do what I say so we can give you some free stuff. Okay? We're trying to give away free stuff. So, no, thank you, Will, very much. So, why don't we start out the day with the two cards that I think are, I'm sorry to say it, I think they're a little bit lazy as far as design goes, but I could be wrong. They're actually really good for commander cards, so maybe that's why they're here. You know, a set can't be all about standard nowadays. There are a lot of formats that they have to think about when they are, coming up with card ideas. But I am going to be a little bit on the critiquey side and say I think these are slightly hacky, and those words are probably going to come back and bite me in the butt. I have a feeling. So let's start with Crackle with Power, which is 2 red and XXX sorcery. Crackle with Power deals 5 times X damage to each of up to X targets. So, do you like this card, Will, or am I just do I need to just go reevaluate everything about Magic?
Yeah, no. This card is going to be one of those cards where either you're specifically trying to make this happen and you want to get this to go off and do what you want, but is it going to fit in standard decks? Maybe if you're trying to do like a 1 of or a 2 of just to like, hey, I want to play with this card and watch it do something amazing. But the mana intensity that it takes, that's the part that really draws it away from standard, I think, for the most part. Again, his maybe commander, definitely EDH. I'm not sure if this is a CDH card, but that's where I would probably play it the most. I'd like to see it in standard. I'm probably going to build a deck to make this card work, but 5 and then 8, it just seems really expensive to me. So I'm not on board, but I'll definitely give it a try.
Gotcha. So unless it's been reprinted, and I don't know, because I have taken a big gap and I just started playing Magic again. I've been playing for over 20 years, or since 94, whatever the math is on that, very close. I don't know if everybody knows the card Fireball, but it is from one of the original sets from Alpha Beta, all those good sets that we all wish we owned. And I feel like they just said, hey, how about we take that? We had an extra red and a whole bunch of extra X's, and, we'll give them something in exchange. More targets. So let's go to the next one so that I can stop being hypercritical and we'll get into the other cards. We have Exponential Growth, which is green, XX. Notice the theme here on the cards I'm critical of.
Yeah.
This is a sorcery. Until end of turn, double target creature's power X times. I think there's more value, or this one is actually going to be used more or hit harder than Crackle with Power, but I still think I don't like how they did it. I feel like they could have been more creative, but go ahead.
Yeah, this card specifically, I think it's going to be more in historic. It might do well in maybe early ramp decks. I mean, don't be wrong. Quadrix is going to have maybe some value when it comes to ramp, and so you might be able to double a target's power. I put it this way. If you're able to at least double it once, so maybe you have a 5/5, a 6/6, or an 8/8 on the board, so now it's 10, 12, or 16. It might be worth it because if it has trample, you're getting through, and that might be lethal. So this might work just enough to really help those decks go over the top if they have trample to take them out. But I definitely think in historic, this has a lot more value just due to the fact that the ramp ability is so much higher that you can actually get some of those bigger creatures out quicker and then maybe finish them faster. So I think that's where you're probably going to see this card more, but I could be wrong. Maybe it's a standard finisher.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm not going to say anything else about it. So next, let's go into Gnarled Professor. And if you think it's Gnarled Professor, you need to check the pronunciation out in an encyclopedia. So Gnarled Professor, or for you layman out there, Gnarled Professor is 2 green, 2 colorless for a creature treefolk druid that is a 5/4. This card came out, I don't know, what, 5 minutes before we started recording? So yeah. I don't even know what to think about it. No, I'm kidding. I already like the card. So it has trample. It's a 5/4 for 4 converted mana cost, so it passes the converted mana cost test. And let me tell you what this does, Will. When Gnarled Professor enters the battlefield, learn. Yeah, that's all. That's all.
Yep.
But I think that's
Yep.
going to be amazing. Once again, before you say what you say, I want to say it
Sure.
first. I think this is definitely a strong card in best of one because I think that's where Learn is really, really going to take like a stronghold in the game and Magic in general. But yeah, I think this is a really good card to get that Learn ability to go and get yourself a lesson. Tell me what you think about this.
No, I agree. I really like that it's a 5/4 with trample for 4. So right off the bat, you're getting the value that you need out of it. Plus, the trample is always super helpful, especially when you have a heavier side of damage. And the learn, now that we're seeing more, lesson cards coming out, and in best of one, I definitely agree. I think lesson is a best of one
That's
more
why I
value
think they
card.
made it. I just don't
Yeah,
see any lesson cards right now that are really going to break the format, in my opinion,
yeah.
in best of three. But in best of one, I think somebody at Wizards was like, hey, why don't we build sideboard cards for best of one?
Yeah, and to
Like,
fetch something that you might need, especially in green, where that's one of those target colors other than white where they need that extra value. The other three colors usually have enough of their own value generated, but green and white, those are the two colors specifically that always need to generate extra value to try to push and get the win over the top. So I think having him rate come out on the board as a 5/4, already being able to defend, being a really good attacker, and then being able to fetch a card that you need, I think he's going to be really played.
right, get out my way, fervent champion, coming through. Uh-oh, bone crusher. No, but so we'll go next with basic conjuration, which is 2 green and a colorless for a sorcery lesson. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, and you gain 3 life. So interesting. If this wasn't a lesson, I'd say take a hike. As a lesson, once again, for best
Yeah.
of one, just jam it in there. I mean, depending on what other lessons there are, which we're about to get into a spicy one, but
Yeah.
depending on what there is, I mean, just fill up your sideboard. I like it.
The one reason I like this card actually is because there's been a lot of times in green where you might get flooded. And if you already have an ability to maybe like play a spell, and that one spell draws you a lesson, and this is the lesson you pick, then the rest of your mana, you can immediately look 6 deeper, grab the creature you need that might be able to put you over the edge or maybe give you that advantage, and then you're gaining life. So it's kind of like a win-win, just to kind of like give you that ability to hold onto a card for the next play, so you can make sure that you're constantly doing something. So I think this is a good addition if you're going to add it as a lesson card.
Mana Flood? What is Mana Flood? Is that thing where every single time I play Magic, I draw double the amount of lands as I do other spells?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Now we have Double Major, which I think is possibly a really strong card, and I'm pretty sure from our discussion earlier, Will, you think this is going to be a bombshell. What do we got here? It's 1 blue and 1 green, and it is an instant. Pretty good so far. Let's see. Copy target creature spell you control, except it isn't a legendary if the spell is legendary.
So I really like this card, Double Major. I think we can definitely abuse it. As you're playing your cards or you're putting a legendary creature onto the battlefield, as it's on the stack, then you immediately play Double Major as a response, and you create 2 of them as they hit the battlefield. Now you have 2 comas to deal with, or you have 2 Dream Trawlers to deal with. But also the other reason I really like this card is because it's giving you advantage immediately with some of those bomb creatures that instantly become targets. So you can be playing against somebody and they already know, hey, he's playing this one spell. They see a spell in process. So they know, hey, I might have to kill that when it hits the battlefield. What they're not going to expect is when you double major that spell, and now they go from I have to deal with 1 threat to dealing with 2 threats, and that could be enough. And I think that's why this card is going to be abused and played in a lot of decks.
I'm excited. I have a feeling that when it finds its home, it will definitely be a specific shell, maybe 2 at the most, but I'm seeing different things than what you're even saying. I mean, yes, of course, I'm thinking Coma. I'm thinking Dream Trawlers. I mean, if depending on how you're playing your deck, what colors you are. But then it's things as simple as, could you imagine on turn 6, you top deck that Questing Beast, you've been looking for a creature to double major, and now you're throwing down 2 Questing Beasts.
Yep.
Or, I don't know, let's say that you're going to go ahead, and then can you imagine something as simple as, a 1/1 green creature that's indestructible?
Yeah. Oh, Toski?
Toski, yeah, that's the one. Could you imagine on turn 6? Casting Toski, double major, swinging with, let's say, even 2 1/1s in the air. If you have, I'm just going, like, you could even have way more than that, but 2 1/1s, and now you're drawing 4 cards. So,
Yep.
there's a lot of potential there. So,
Yeah.
okay. Let's go into a colorless sorcery lesson. What do we got here? It's Mascot Exhibition. 7 colorless. Ew, it's way too expensive. Let's not talk about it. No, see, that's the great thing about a lesson, especially in best of 1. It wasn't doing anything anyways. What does this thing do for 7? It better do a lot. Create a 2/1 white and black Inkling, creature token with flying.
Yes.
Okay. Then create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token, a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. So, yeah, you're paying 7, but you're getting a lot of stuff out of that for a card that is basically free in best of 1. And I'm just going to keep saying it like that because I don't think this is meant for best of 3. What do you think, Will?
So this card, I 100% agree with you. As a lesson, it's going to see a lot of play. It's going to be off to the side, one of those cards you can just fetch for, and all of a sudden you're playing 3 creatures for 7. And it's one of those cards that definitely, if necessary, will help you go wide, and I think it's going to be used in a lot of decks as one of your lesson cards. Why not? I mean, it's just extra creatures, it's colorless, it should be able to fit in every deck.
Well, I don't know if it'll see a lot of play, but it'll definitely be on the bench as opposed to stadium. So, okay. Next, we have a modal card. We have front side. It is a red and white modal card. Front side's white. Malia, Crafty Companion. 2 white, 1 colorless, legendary creature fox. 2/3. Wish it was a 3/3, but that's okay. It's probably got a lot going on. Let's see. Whenever an opponent attacks 1 or more planeswalkers you control, put a loyalty counter on each planeswalker you control. See you later, 1/1s or 1/Xs. You're not doing anything anymore to my planeswalker. And then, whenever a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. Now, the backside is red, 2 red, and 4 colorless. Luca, Wayward Bonder, which comes out with 5 loyalty, legendary planeswalker. And +1, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. If a creature card was discarded this way, draw 2 cards instead. Ooh, okay. -2, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Okay. It gains haste. Exile at the beginning of your next upkeep. Well, I'm pretty sure that means if it has vigilance or you don't attack with it, you can block with it. And then -7, you get an emblem with. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So, seems a little expensive to me, but does come out with 5 loyalty. Are we fitting this in standard, or what are we doing with this card? I like the front side. Back side's a little expensive.
Yeah, I think Mila is going to be well worth playing, especially the second part of it. Whenever a permanent you control becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. White is always looking for card draw mechanics. So this card specifically can be very useful in a lot of different white decks, especially if you're already, knowing that those smaller white creature cards are going to get killed, then they're going to be targeted. So with that said, you're losing one and gaining a card, so it's kind of feeding into itself. So dropping it on turn 3 when maybe you've already dropped a creature on turn 1 and turn 2 doesn't feel bad, because at this moment they have to deal with Mila instead, and now you're getting value out of those first 2 creatures that you're trying to build up for. Luca, on the other hand, it's going to be a little bit trickier. I thought originally when I read it is like, well, how does it defend itself? But now that I see that the creature sticks around till the beginning of the next upkeep, great, as long as you're not attacking. So, I mean, it just feels bad though, spending 2. Maybe it's a finisher where you're trying to get out a bigger creature, and maybe if you -2, you pull your dragon from the graveyard. He's able to hit him in the air for 4, create a treasure, and you're like, okay, worth it. But the +1, I mean, I like drawing cards. If it's a creature, getting 2 cards, but it does have 6, so it is high value. But at the same time, I don't know. I think under a certain shell, it'll definitely work if you're building around Luca as what you're trying to do. But if you're just trying to jam him into a deck, I don't know. I'd have to really see how the meta works.
Okay, I definitely think that Mila may see some play, and I am definitely Luca warm on the backside of the card. And also, is it just me, Will, or does it seem like this is... I mean, we have seen plenty of modal cards in the past, but this set kind of feels like the first set to me where you could play both the front or the back in decks, but I feel like this is the first set where it's like, I could see myself building around, let's just use the card. Side? Yeah, just the card we just looked at. I could see 100%. Using Mila, but never
playing Luca.
Like not in my game plan. Maybe not even have red in the deck.
Yeah, so, I agree. And well, it's funny too, because so much of the Moto cards that we've come out with now, like in the last 2 sets, you have to really think about it. If I build a 60 card deck and a majority of them Moto cards, you actually have 120 card deck.
Right?
Like
So Magic
it's
could get
insane.
interesting in the future. What are we going to go to? Like, because of digital, are we going to have tri-side cards?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Where do
That's
we
what I'm saying.
go?
Like, and that's the part where like me and my buddies keep talking about was just like, man, how big can your decks really be now?
And
it's insane.
Well, why don't we get into our featured college for the day, which is Silverquill. So why don't we start off with Silverquill Silencer, since it is the card that has Silverquill in the title today. So we have a 1 black, 1 white creature that is a human cleric 3/2. As Silverquill Silencer enters the battlefield, choose a non-land card name. Whenever an opponent casts a spell with the chosen name, that opponent loses 3 life and you draw a card. So, I mean, I think the ability looks amazing, but best case scenario, I mean, okay, maybe I'm getting greedy. As I say, best case scenario, you get 12 life and 4 cards out of this. I was like, wait a minute, for 2 mana? Hold on. Let's see what Will has to say.
I think, honestly, in the right shell and how you're trying to build this card, you're right. You're probably only going to be drawing a max of 4 cards. You're gaining a max of 12. But if you have 4 of these guys in the deck, then you times that by 4. So, and you can actually determine how the opponent might be playing. So it's kind of like almost a feel good because the opponent itself is losing that 3 life over and over again, depending on different cards that you might be playing. So imagine like turn 2, you drop this, turn 3, you drop another one like this, turn 4, you drop another one like this. And if you know the meta and you know your opponent's deck, I mean, you're calling out all the cards you know they're probably
calling out Heartless Act. You're probably calling out Bloodchief Thirst. You're probably calling out Eliminate, because you know that that's the card that if they cast it, you got something out of this card.
Yes, and that's where I'm thinking it's a 1-for-1 at that moment. Like, so, or 2-for-1 technically, because say they don't have that card yet and they can't, get rid of this guy, he's still a 3/2. So you're still swinging for 3.
Or imagine you throw this on turn 3 and you have a Luminarch Aspirant in play and your opponent doesn't top deck the removal that you just named until their next turn. Now what do they do? Do they use it to kill the Luminarch Aspirant and then you get this card again to trigger or not? And just to clarify, in the past, I do say a whole lot, does this pass the Bone Crusher test? Well, when it comes to 2-drops and 1-drops, I don't do that as often because a 2-drop should be a 2/2 on vanilla and a 1-drop should be a 1/1. So this being a 3/2, that's fine.
Well, and then the other thing too, it might have actually does pass the Bone Crusher test because you play it on 2,
call Bone Crusher,
naming Bone Crusher. They go to shoot it, they lose 3 life, you're losing 2, you get to draw a card.
So you don't gain any ground there because they have the stomp plus the Bone Crusher, but now you don't get 2 for they don't get double value out of the Bone Crusher because you're drawing the card.
Exactly.
So it brings you back to even street.
Yep.
So cool. Okay. Well, next we have a card that I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit excited about. So what do we have? We have Mavinda, Student's Advocate, 1 white, 2 colorless, legendary creature, Bird Advisor. It is a 2/3 with flying. Can't have a bird without flying. Well, I guess if it was a chicken. So, and then for 0, which means you can do this as many times as you want in a turn because there is no tap symbol. You may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. If that spell doesn't target a creature you control, it costs 8 colorless more to cast this way, but that's okay, and we will explain why. If that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead, activate only once each turn. Okay, I take back the very beginning where I said you could do that as many times as you want in a turn. They are new cards, so you got to give us a little bit of leeway there. But I think this is an amazing card built around the right deck. Why don't you tell me why you think, Will, and then I'll tell you if it's the same reason I do.
Yeah, I like this card. I think that it definitely has really good value. Flying 2/3, great. I just like the 0, being able to do this as an instant or sorcery that targets your own creatures. So being able to do extra spells, especially if you're building around affecting your own creatures over and over again, I think this card is going to be really fun. I actually really want to see how this card is used maybe in an EDH deck. And I also want to see how this is used in Historic, because there's a lot of decks right now in Historic specifically that manipulate the graveyard, instants and sorceries specifically from there. And having another creature that can do that, I think it's amazing. But I also dig that it has a mana sink on the back end. So if you want to target, something that's not your own creature and want to do something even more explicit to your opponents, you pay 8 and you automatically do it.
I mean, you got to flood pretty hard, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that's my whole point. It's like, it's not just a dead card after that you run through your graveyard on stuff that only targets you. And that's why I think I dig this card the most.
Gotcha. Yeah, I really like it. And I just want to say that, okay, so a lot of cards out there like this, I just don't like because if it gets removed immediately, you got no value out of it. And that's a big thing. You know, passing the Bone Crusher's Stomp, you know, test, does it do anything when it first hits the battlefield? And you can look at this and say, no, it doesn't. But it sure does if you cast it on turn 4 or turn 5. I don't think you will this down on turn 3 and just slam it on the board. Not at all. So with the, I don't think the white life gain deck is particularly what you maybe want to be using this in, but the white aggro deck that was flying around, I don't know, about a month ago, it's still around. But, you know, this is great in that deck when you got instances that give you +1/+1 and indestructible for the turn, when you got sorceries that give all your creatures +1/+1. I mean, there's a lot of value you're going to get out of this card, in my opinion. Okay, next, let's go with Dramatic Finale, which is a converted mana cost of 4, your choice of 4 black, 4 white, or the combination thereof. It is an enchantment. Creature tokens you control get +1/+1. Whenever one or more non-token creatures you control dies, create a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. This ability triggers only once each turn. So, I don't know. Does this fit into standard, or are we putting this somewhere else?
If you like token decks, this will always fit into a token deck. I think if you're building around tokens, then you already know this card's an auto include. And then with a lot of the new cards that came out in this set, they have to do with creating tokens of some sort, inklings of some sort.
Hey, spoilers. We're getting into that card next.
Yep. So with that, I think it has strong value. Again, you're building this under one archetype. So anything that you're building that has tokens in it and falls within this color range of Orzhov, I think you're going to be able to use this and utilize this card in most of those decks.
I agree as well. And the thing I like about it is that if you have a non-token creature on the battlefield and it dies, not only are you pumping all your other tokens with synergistic cards that create tokens, but you know your creature that died now becomes a token. So it's it's a pretty neat card. Speaking of spoilers, Will, the next card is Blot Out the Sky, which is 1 black, 1 white, and X sorcery. Create X tapped 2/1 white and black Inkling creature tokens with flying. If X is 6 or more, destroy all non-creature, non-land permanents. So now you see why they come into play tapped as a sorcery.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that this is a 1, maybe 2 of at max in a deck that's playing with this kind of, you know, synergies, because you don't want to draw too many, because this is an 8 converted mana cost card for the most part.
Yeah, and the other thing too is you have to be careful with it, because if you have Dramatic Finale already out, you don't want to pay the 6, because if you do, you destroy your own stuff. So you want to make sure that you're playing it within reason. If you need to destroy your own stuff, though, just so you can get over and take over the game, then you're going to use it anyways. So it just depends on where you want to use it and at what time. So I think if you build a shell around Dramatic Finale and you're running this card, you have to know when to pull the trigger to make sure that you're doing it to get the most benefit out of the card. Now, I think if you're using this in a Silver Quill kind of like build around, and this is your way of board wiping everything and starting from scratch and giving you the advantage, you go right for it. I think it's definitely an include in that.
Yeah, I really like it. If you have Dramatic Finale out, just like the token you get with that's actually not a 2/1, it's a 3/2. Same thing with this if you have that out. They're all 3/2s. So,
yeah.
Okay, next let's go into Vanishing Verse, which is 1 black, 1 white, instant. Exile target monocolored permanent. Now, depending on the meta, I'm strong on this. I like it.
I honestly think this is one of the better cards that we're seeing. It's an instant. You got to love it. So exile target monocolored permanent. There's a lot of them out there. Don't be wrong. They put this specifically in this set because you have a lot of dual color permanents that are going into play. So yeah, that's great. But this is a great addition to an EDH deck. In Commander in general, I think this is going to be an auto include in a lot of those Orzhov colors to really kind of take over some of that advantage, especially as an instant, just to exile some. I mean, exile is what makes this card so great. So I think you're going to see a lot of play with it and how we're going to use it.
Yeah, and depending on the meta, it's going to be super strong. If there's a bunch, obviously, of multicolored cards running around, it's not as strong. But if you've noticed, I mean, there's a lot of modal cards in this set that are pretty strong. People are going to want to play with them, and each side is one color. Once it's in play, it's a color. It's not multicolor. So I think that's a good one. Okay, let's go ahead. We have 2 more left. One is another modal card, speaking of the devil. Front side is Selfless Glyph Weaver, which is 1 white, 2 colorless, creature human cleric, 2/3, exile Selfless Glyph Weaver. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Situational, not super excited. The backside is Deadly Vanity. I love that name. 3 black, 5 colorless, yes, 8 converted mana cost, sorcery. Choose a creature or planeswalker, then destroy all other creatures and planeswalkers. So I really love the text on this card, but I just don't see what archetype this fits into other than a commander deck, maybe.
Yeah, this is definitely a commander card for the most part. To get to 8 in any deck, you want that 8 drop that you do to be the definite win for your deck, or give you the advantage that no one else is going to get. And we have ultimatums for 7, so I'd rather be playing ultimatums versus playing Deadly Vanity for 8, 1 more.
It doesn't make sense.
No.
And when we were talking earlier, like I said, like a control deck is not going to have a bombshell on the board that is a creature and still allow you to have a bunch of creatures and planeswalkers they need to clean up. So I just don't see it.
Yeah, and then the Selfless Glyph Weaver, I mean, like you said earlier, very situational. He comes out on turn 3, and great, mono white maybe. So if you're playing like white weenies and you're just trying to go over the top, and on turn 3 you play him because on turn 4 they're going to try to do a board wipe. Great, you save everything else, he dies. So that's the useful part of it. The feel bad is if you play him and they still exile everything anyways. So it's just one of those cards where it'll fit specifically in certain decks, but beyond that, I really think this card is going to be a commander card.
It's a bloated Selfless Savior that does too much. I mean, granted, yes, Selfless Savior is 1 creature, and this is all your creatures. But, I mean, the deck is anything running Selfless Savior right now is not thinking to themselves, if only I could sack this creature and it did more. So, that's my opinion there. And then last, for the day, we have Devastating Mastery. I don't even want to tell you how much this costs. 4 white, 2 colorless. Sorcery. But, and you're a big but here because we are familiar with these cards. This is not going to be pretty. What do we got? You may pay 2 colorless and 2 white rather than pay the spell's mana cost. If the 4 converted mana cost was paid, an opponent chooses up to 2 non-land permanents they control and return them to the owner's hand, and then destroy all non-land permanents. I mean, is this a board wipe? Is this a tempo card? Is this a tempo board wipe? I don't know. I don't like it for 6. I don't like it for 4, but maybe I'm wrong. What do you think?
I just think there's better board wipes right now. We have better
in every format.
Yeah, currently right now, and
I
in every
think there might be a pauper board wipe that is better than this.
And that's why I was looking at it too, and I'm like, I just don't understand. Yeah, I guess you could just destroy all non-land permanents. That's what makes the card so strong, because you're actually not just worried about creatures. You're not just board wiping. You're literally getting rid of everything. So that's what makes the card better, I guess, than a board wipe. But you'd want to pay the total of 6 then, because if you're going to destroy all non-land permanents, well, your opponent's going to save the best 2.
Right? So, and at this point in the game, your opponent is, if you're playing this, you're playing a control deck, your opponent is probably running out of gas. You're telling me you want to wipe the board but give them 2 cards back that you have to deal with? What?
That's why I'm not a fan of this card.
No, I'm not a fan at all. So, okay, well, that does it for today's spoilers. Thank you very much. Let the people know what we've got going on one more time so that we can give away some. I mean, you do it.
Yeah, so we are giving away 3,400 gems to one of our lucky subscribers for free once we get to 100, and we're right there. We only have just a few more to go, and one of you is going to get 3,400 gems. And especially, this is a good time to get it because you're going to be able to get it right before a new release, so you can use those gems for new packs for a whole new set, and we want to help you get those new packs.
Right? And subscribing is completely free. I know that you're not going to click it because you're like, well, I just going on to the next video. Yeah, we're talking to you. Just click it real quick, free, and you get gems. I mean, you might get gems. It's not a guarantee. So, but thank you very much for watching. If you enjoy the content, as always, and as Will said, please subscribe, share with your friends, like the video, leave a comment down below, and as always, have a blast in the arena. Bye, Will.
Bye.